In this video, I'm going to teach you how to use synthetic division as a way to solve the equation. When we solve the polynomial equation, we are identifying the roots of the equation, or the x-intercepts of the equation. Now, I like to refer to this as the MAMA method. And that's just an acronym that reminds me of the steps. M is going to say multiply, followed by add, always multiply, add, and it continues on in that order until we finish up. The very first thing we're going to do is we're going to make sure that we write this in standard form if it's not currently in standard form. That means the highest exponent on the variable all the way down to the lowest. Then please go to the constant, and we're going to come up with all of the factors in this particular case of 30. The way I think of it is 1 times 30 is 30, 2 times 15 is 30, 3 times 10 is 30. Now, there's 4. I can't take 4 times an integer and get 30 because 4 doesn't evenly divide into 30, but 5 and 6 do. In front of this, please put a plus or minus. What we will learn in the next lesson is that beyond this, we will always be looking at the leading coefficient. Now, for lesson 4, we're setting it up easy. So for lesson 4, we're just focusing right now on what are the factors of the constant. These are all the numbers I'm going to have to test, both positive and negative 1, positive and negative 2, and so on until I find one that works. So how do we test this? With me, you're going to make an upside down division box. And then I'm going to look for the degree. This is degree 3. Very small. I'm going to write degree 3 all the way down to degree 0. In front of those values, I'm going to put the constant. So this is a 1, negative 6, negative 1, and 30. Underneath the very last value, which is the constants, I'm going to put a box. I know that I've tested it and it works. It works if I receive a 0. Okay, so how do we test this? We're going to go back to using the MAMA method as a way of telling us what to do. Let's start right now by testing positive 1. So if everybody could put a 1 out front, and I always tell students put like some type of a cloud around it, some type of a dot around it. Everything we do when we multiply comes back to this number. Okay, step number 1 as we test it. Step number 1 is we are going to bring down the first number. Bring down first number. So my first number is brought down just as is. And now I follow this MAMA method. It says take this number and multiply it with this magical number out front. So 1 times 1 is 1. I line it up and then I add straight down. Negative 6 plus 1 is negative 5. I keep going. I multiply. Well, what do I multiply with this with? The magical number out front. Negative 5 times 1 is negative 5. And I add straight down. What do I do next? I continue to do MA until I have a number. I multiply to get negative 6, and I'm not even going to take time to add down to get 24, because unless this is a 0, it does not work. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to test negative 1. Okay, so I'm going to rewrite this again. Please do this with me. We're going to make the upside down division box. And I'm going to do the exact same thing, x3, x2, x1, and x0. Feel free to use a whiteboard. I'll do that in the upcoming problems. I'll show you how it does save some time. All right, so I tested 1 and it didn't work. Now I'm going to test negative 1. And again, I still have the coefficients of 1, negative 6, negative 1, and 30. I'll continue to test these values until one of them works. How do I know it when it works? When I'm left with 0. Okay, first step is bring down the first number. Step 2 is we are just going to follow that MAMA method. So here we go. Starting with multiplying, negative 1 times 1 is negative 1. Add straight down to get negative 7. Multiply to get 7. Add straight down to get 6. Multiply to get negative 6. This does not add to 0. I don't even need to take time to do it. I'm going to give myself a little bit of space here. I will be using a whiteboard next just to save myself time. You can do the same as you do today's work. Okay, so I've tested 1 and -1. They don't work. Let's test 2. So I'm making that upside down division box, and I'm writing the same things inside each time until I find one that works. How do I know it works? I end up with a remainder of 0. Okay, I'm testing now positive 2. Step 1 is always bring down that first number. And then I multiply always back to this magical number on the outside. So 2 times 1 is 2. I add straight down to get -4. I multiply to get -8. I add straight down to get -9. I multiply to get -18. Again, adding down is not going to give me 0. I'd like you to get started on now testing -2. Now the nice thing is if you have a partner you can work with, you're welcome to do this. Hey, I'm going to test 1, you try -1. If they don't work, I'm going to test 2, you test -2, and so on. It can save you time. All right, let's test -2 together, please. So this is the number right here that I am testing. Okay, here we go. Bringing down the first number, m for multiplying, then adding straight down. M for multiplying, then adding straight down. M for multiplying, and then adding straight down. And this is great. Why is this great? Because I now have a remainder of 0, exactly what I wanted. What does that tell me? Okay, if I get a remainder of 0, it tells me that this works. So I can see this problem should have 3 solutions. I know one of the solutions is x equals -2. So come up to the very top and write x equals -2. That's one of the solutions. Now I want to find the other 2 solutions. So come back down here, and we're going to go back to what you learned in Algebra 1, 2. I'm going to take this information and I'm going to turn it into an equation. Instead of reading from left to right, you're going to reverse this. So this has no x's, 1x, and 2x, and it's always going to be in that order. So 0 equals no x, 1x, 2x is, if there's another number, it would be the third x. Let's see, can we factor and solve this? What multiplies to give you 15 and combines to give you -8? That would be -3 and -5. Multiply and add. I'm setting those equal to 0, and I can see that we can easily solve here to get x equals 3 and x equals 5, and this problem is done. So for this problem, my solution is x equals -2, x equals +3, and x equals +5. You can see that it does take a lot of paper to complete one problem. I'm going to use a board to do example number 2, thinking that it may save me a little time. Here we go. We're going to do a total of 3 examples in this video. Here is example number 2. That's not a good marker. Let me grab another one. X cubed minus 5x squared plus 2x plus 8 equals 0. So I'm provided with this polynomial equation. I want to use synthetic division. There is no calculator involved in this. So how do we use synthetic division to solve this? Which means we're trying to figure out what are the roots or what values of x make the left side equal to 0. First thing we're going to do is we're going to write down all the factors of 8. So 1 times 8, 2 times 4. So I need to test 1, -1, 2, -2, 4, -4, 8, until one of them works. All right, let's get started with this. Make an upside down division box. I can see we have to the 3rd power, so we have a cubic. So we have 3, 2, 1, and 0. Now in front of each of those, I'm going to actually write down what are the coefficients. So I have 1, -5, 2, and 8. And as I do this, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to test 1 first. Now I'm going to show you why I really prefer using a board. It can save me quite a bit of time. So I'm going to test a 1. And as a reminder, everything that I multiply goes back to this. Okay, step 1 when we do this is, remember, MAMA method is just something Miss Bradley came up with. It is nothing spectacular, but it reminds students of the steps. You're going to multiply, add, multiply, add, multiply, add until you have a value. And only when this is 0 does it tell us that this number is a solution. Here we go. We've dropped down. We're going to start with multiplying. 1 times 1 is 1. I'm going to add straight down to get -4. Then I'm going to multiply always back to this magical number, and then I'm going to add straight down to get a -2. I'm going to multiply to get -2, and this gives me 6. Did 1 work? Yes or no? No. Here's why I like using a board. You ready? I can be kind of lazy. I'm just going to go over the top of this, and I'm going to erase this, and I'm ready to check the next number. That's why I like it. So now I've tested 1. It's time to test -1. I've tested 1. It did not work. I did not result in 0. Dropping down, I'm going to multiply to get -1, adding down to get -6. Multiplying to get 6, adding down to get 8. Multiplying to get -8, and adding down to 0. This works. I know one of these 3 solutions is in fact -1. I'm going to write that off to the side. -1 is one of the 3 solutions. I'm going to take this and now write this. 0 equals no x, 1x, and 2x. And then my next question is it possible to factor and solve this? Or do I have to use the quadratic formula? I multiply to get 8 and combine to get -6. What 2 numbers multiply to get 8 and combine to get -6? -2 and -4. Now I like this form because in this form it makes it really easy. One answer is 2 and the other answer is 4. So here I have 3 solutions of 2, of 4, and of -1. We're going to do one more example in this video, a third and final example. In this last example, I'm going to show how working as a team or with the students in front of us can help save time. Let's first start by coming up with the factors of 60. 1 and 60, 2 times 30, 3 times 20, 4 times 15, 5 times 12, and 6 times 10. That is a lot of numbers to test, right? Wouldn't you guys agree? So here's what I'm going to have you do. You're going to work in groups in front of me. I'm going to press pause after I stop talking. This very first group, you're testing +1. Back group of girls, you're testing -1. You're testing +2. You're testing -2. You're testing +3. And we are testing really -3. I'm going to press pause. Begin. I've been told by a group that -3 works. And so could I have everybody that's in front of me, let's please do -3 right now. Everyone that's in front of me. So I've been told by other groups when I was not filming that the number assigned to them did not work. So let's do -3. We have 1x to the third, 2x squared, minus 23x to the first, and -60x to the 0. So no term is forgotten about. We're going to do the MAMA method. Everything we multiply comes back to this outside number. I drop down the first number, and then I start the MAMA method. Multiply, add down. Multiply, add down. Multiply, add down. And it does work. What does that mean? It means that this value was tested and it works. So I come up here and I write x equals -3. It works. What do I do with this remainder amount? I'm going to take this remainder and I'm going to write it with 0 equals. This is no x's. I'm going to remove a little more of this. This is 1x and this is 2x's. This is now what I'm going to try to solve. It's a quadratic, so we know multiple ways we can solve it. Maybe quadratic formula, maybe we'll do factoring. That's my preference if it's factorable. Maybe you'll do completing the square. Let's check. What multiplies right now to equal -20 combines to give you -1. That's going to be a -5 and a 4 if I'm right. Good. So x minus 5 and x plus 4 equals 0, which makes this x equals +5 is the solution and x equals -4. So here's 2 of my solutions, and as a reminder, we already determined that -3 was the third solution. Now, how did I know there was going to be 3 solutions? I knew there was going to be 3 solutions based on the root. At this time, I'd like you to take out the homework that says synthetic division, and I'd like you to do these specific problems that I'm going to write. So after watching this video, if it makes sense to you, then I'd like you to watch or do the following problems. If it does not make sense, I'd like you to go ahead and watch the extended videos you can find on our Google homepage. Okay, so this is lesson 4 from unit 5, and I would like you to do problems 1, 2, 3, 4. Problems 9, 10, 11, 12, and 13. As a reminder, when you get to the place on the last one where it said, if I can come back here, it said x squared minus x minus 20 equals 0. And I said there's 3 ways we can solve, right? We chose to factor because it's factorable. How else could I solve this if it wasn't factorable? I would use what? The quadratic formula, which is x equals negative b plus or minus b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. If this part is not factorable as a method to solve, then use the quadratic formula. You will see that on some of these problems.